One of them will sit out. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
The divine realm. You know,
Because when they get I'm not scheduled for it.
It's like, is this just going to be the piece of election? But yeah, it's not
We'll be about 5 minutes. How many people have you made blue or green if you can? You got audio and pictures and everything?
I'm struggling with the audio. I'm struggling with the focus.
We did the exact same camera.
Yeah, I heard you guys are.
Yeah, we do.
They're coming up.
Yeah, that's why ours are all up, because we're not finding the gap, it's just going over. We're getting rid of all the.
Or all the two are going to, so they're both saying that. Yeah. Not just because. I think two of us are saying that there's some health matters.
We're going to have to change this one in 2 weeks. That's all.
No one to smash it. She's in the building. This is under the Harris. Okay. Yeah.
Did you want to read something from it?
She's always been research oriented. Didn't want to do with
Yeah.
So we're looking at these cameras too.
Next year she's printed them. I don't know.
I really going to be sure. Yeah.
So you almost want it some like.
I think Twin Cities would be better because the Twin Cities are very consistently left.
This is
Yeah, they're
Right. Oh, the new one's coming.
Yes.
They're fairly similar.
I like the two because it's not
Right, correct. That's one thing as well. You can go to the grocery store, never run out of meat.
It is. Oh, no. It's a 10 miles call.
I like that those for sure.
Let's take out the lunch box.
We have a smaller church group than past years that I've done it. I wish. No, I've never got one in all my years. I always have to use all the get the merch, like the TV. Yeah. We need at least one shirt.
Or you
Yeah.
I'm here, but barely.
Do you want to do something wrong to the round?
I know. Incredible. I'm very slow. Oh, no.
Hey everybody, how's it going? I don't know what this is.
This is your speaking order,
Okay,
and these are just other folks to introduce.
okay, gotcha. Good. Come on in. Let's say welcome to everybody for being here. Come on right in. Come right on in. Yep, come on in. Squeeze in, act like you like each other. Yeah, squeeze on in. We got everybody? I don't want anybody out of the shot who's here. Okay. All right. You know what we're going to do, Eric?
Yeah.
Here's what we're going to do. Oh, sorry. What if we put that, what if we...
Should we go all the way?
Yeah. What if... Mr. Mayor, what if you were right over here with these guys? You're nice and short. Good. There you go. All right.
Right up front.
That works right there.
Okay, how we doing now? You know what? I tell you the truth. This issue has affected so many people. We could have quadrupled this. First of all, I would like to welcome everybody to the Attorney General's office. My name is Keith Ellison. I'm the Attorney General. And several months ago, I was at my desk, and I got a call from Mayor Carter, who's here with us today. And Mayor Carter called me with a question, and he said, look, tragic shooting in St. Paul involving clearly a straw purchase of a gun. A straw purchaser has been supplied by a local retailer, and Mayor Carter just asked me, hey, look, what could be done about it? And I began to think, what could be done about it? Today, Mayor Carter and all of the mayors who are with us today who care so deeply about this today, Mayor Gonzalez, Mayor Fry, Mayor Carter, we're doing something about it. Now, let me be real clear. People have a right to own guns. I own guns myself. But they also have an obligation to store them and handle them safely. When we purchase them, we have an obligation not to give or resell them to people who legally cannot have them. This includes people convicted of felonies, people with a history of perpetuating domestic violence, and people who are deemed to be not mentally fit to hold possession of a weapon. Buying a gun for someone who cannot legally have one is called straw purchasing, and it is illegal. As I said, my name is Keith Ellison, and this morning my office filed a complaint in district court against Fleet Farm, Mills Fleet Farm, for a number of things, including negligent entrustment, public nuisance. I want to say that gun dealers and retailers have an obligation under state and federal law that they must meet. This includes stopping straw purchasing. They may only sell guns to people who are legally entitled to have them, and may not sell guns to people who they know or have good reason to know are going to give or resell them to another that they cannot give them to under the law. In fact, to do otherwise is known as gun trafficking, and it's not lawful. Some gun dealers, though, they look the other way. Good gun dealers, they do the right thing, but some, they ignore the red flags, and they sell guns to people that they have reason to know will give them or resell them to people who can't have them under the law and who will use them to commit violent crimes, ones that hurt and kill people. These dealers put their profits ahead of Minnesotans' lives. Today, we're taking action against dangerous and illegal gun trafficking. So as I noted earlier this morning, I filed a lawsuit on behalf of the people of the state of Minnesota against gun retailer Fleet Farm for negligently selling firearms to straw purchasers, aiding and abetting these criminals, contributing to gun trafficking in Minnesota by allowing guns to get into the wrong hands. I'm charging Fleet Farm with negligence per se, negligent entrustment, aiding and abetting, and public nuisance. I'm asking the court to impose tighter controls on Fleet Farm, including independent monitoring of firearm sales and much more vigorous and rigorous training of their employees in order to put an end to straw purchasing there. I'm also asking the court to order Fleet Farm to disgorge the profits that they made from selling guns to straw purchasers. Here's what Fleet Farm has done. As we lay out in the complaint, as I've already showed you, Fleet Farm has failed to meet its duties and obligations under federal and state law and regulations by selling numerous firearms to straw purchasers. In doing so, Fleet Farm has disregarded well-known and blatant warning signs regarding straw purchasing, including things like multiple purchases of similar handguns, especially the 9mm, buying sprees over concentrated periods of time, and staggered visits by straw purchasers to different Fleet Farm locations to elude multiple sale reporting requirements. These are the hallmark red flags of illegal gun trafficking by straw purchasers. Fleet Farm had a duty under the law to spot and stop this behavior. Nevertheless, Mill Fleet Farms continued to engage in straw purchase transactions, even though they knew or should have known that these customers were not making legitimate purchases for themselves and were likely to resell them illegally. In doing so, Fleet Farm has profited from the unlawful sale of firearms to sham purchasers who then transferred these weapons to criminals or other dangerous persons. For example, Jerome Horton. As we detail in the complaint, one of the straw purchasers to whom Fleet Farm sold guns was Jerome Horton. As you can see here, Fleet Farm, right over here, Fleet Farm sold Horton 24 guns over a 4-month span, from June to October 2021. Take a look at this graphic. There are many red flags that Horton was a straw purchaser. Fleet Farm sold Horton multiple guns at once on 5 different days. The guns Fleet Farm sold were nearly all the same 9mm caliber handgun. Fleet Farm also sold multiple handguns to Horton in a very short period of time. They sold Horton 8 9mm semi-automatic pistols in 1 week between July 24th and July 31st, 2021. On other occasions, Fleet Farm made multiple sales to Horton at the same time and at the same location within 5 business days. Horton also staggered purchasing handguns from different Fleet Farm locations. All of these were red flags. they put Fleet Farm on, they put Fleet Farm on notice that Horton was engaged in straw purchasing and unlawful trafficking of firearms, and that he was attempting to evade detection. Fleet Farm had a duty to stop selling Horton guns, but they kept selling them anyway. Incidents of crime. 7 guns that Jerome Horton straw purchased and then illegally trafficked have been traced to incidents of crime or suspected crime. We're going to talk about them, 2 of them today. On September 6, 2001, a Glock 9mm pistol that Fleet Farm sold to Horton on July 7, 2021, was found by 6-year-old Olin Norsing. Olin's with his parents and his sister here today. Olin found the gun in the front yard of his family's house in South Minneapolis. The gun was likely discarded there by suspects involved in an earlier Minneapolis housing public shooting incident, who then raced through the neighborhood as they fled from police. Fortunately, Olin is a smart young man, and he did the right thing. He told his mom and dad about the gun, and his father, Michael, secured the gun until police recovered it. And they're here today to tell you their story, and I want to thank you. On October 10th, 2021, a 9mm semi-automatic pistol that Fleet Farm sold to Horton on July 31st, 2021, was fired in the 7th Street truck park shooting incident in St. Paul. This is the incident that Mayor Carter called me about. This pistol was fired by Devontre Phillips, who had a prior felony conviction for aggravated first-degree robbery, making him ineligible to possess firearms or ammunition. An exchange of fire between Phillips and 2 other gunmen injured 14 people and tragically claimed the life of Marquisha Wiley, 27 years old. Andrea Withersby and Cedrina Baker are survivors of that terrible shooting, and they will tell their story. Thank you all for being here. Accountability. Now, Jerome Horton has been held accountable, as is appropriate. And I want to thank police and prosecutors who brought him to justice. He pled guilty in federal court, and he will be sentenced later this month. Another person involved in Horton's gun trafficking scheme, Gabriel Young Duncan, has been held accountable under the law. He's also pled guilty in federal court, and he's going to be sentenced today. The shooters in the 7th Street truck park shooting are being held accountable under the law. The trial of Devontre Phillips will start soon. Ramsey County Attorney John Choi is leading that prosecution. The actor that has not yet been held accountable under the law, the actor who sold the gun to Horton and who set in motion this chain of deadly events, is Fleet Farm. And I'm starting the process of holding them accountable today. So they are now going to complete that circle. Now, let me just say, as I conclude, under the laws of the state of Minnesota, crime must be investigated by local police and prosecuted by local prosecutors. But that's not the end of the story. There's more to do, and we all have a role to play. Today, the Attorney General's office is holding a gun retailer accountable using tools of a civil lawsuit. Why? We have people here who have been shot. We have a young man here who and his family who've been terrorized by finding a gun on the street, loaded. We're here because these incidents did end tragically and could have ended even worse. We've been using civil tools to try to create safer communities. Work together with Mayor Fry to try to deal with a slumlord for his eviction for a profit scheme in North Minneapolis that the judge, in issuing the order against this landlord, said were of biblical plague proportions. When he looked at the rats and the gnats and the squirrels, he said it was wrong. I don't know, where's the mayor? Remember that one?
I do.
Absolutely. And recently, we began an investigation of unlawful and dangerous public nuisances related to 2 businesses in North Minneapolis, and that's ongoing. Local prosecutors and the U.S. Attorney are leading criminal prosecutions. We thank them for that. But we need to go upstream with civil tools as well and turn off the spigot of illegal gun trafficking. And I want to commend the retailers who are doing the right thing and meeting their duty to stop straw purchasing. We don't want to generalize. It's not everybody. Many gun retailers are abiding by the law, and we thank them. But for the ones who are not, they have to stop and get in line and obey the law. With rights come responsibilities. If you have the right to sell guns, you have the responsibility to stop straw purchasers. And we're going to enforce that right today. Before I hand the microphone over, I just want to thank some folks who you will not hear from today, but who by their presence are saying that they care about this issue and they are with justice. They're standing for the simple idea that people have the right not to be shot. I want to thank the Mother's Love, which is a very important community organization. Where's that T-shirt? Okay, we want to see that. All right. I want to thank Cheryl Anderson, Crystal Hill, Don Esther Anderson, and Cherie Jennings. I want to thank all of y'all. Put your hands up if you would. You guys aren't speaking today, but you are, well, not all of you are. Some of you are. But I want to let you know we appreciate y'all being here. Representing the Wiley family, Priscilla Lord and Melissa Hinlin. Where are you guys at? Yeah, come on over here. Let the people see you. We want them to know that you're here, you are accounted for, and we thank you for all you're doing. And we're sorry for your loss. And we want to thank Moms Demand Action, Kathleen Anderson. Where are you at, Kathleen? And you're not by yourself. Who's that?
Catherine Brennan.
Catherine Brennan. Thank you, Catherine, for being here. Those folks are here and are demonstrating physically how much they are concerned about this issue.
We thank you.
And thank you. But now I want to turn the microphone over to my colleague, Catherine Morkey, who is an Assistant Attorney General. After her, the survivors of the truck stop shooting, Andrea Weathersby and Sadrina Baker. After them, I'd like the family of Olin will come up. And then after them, our mayors, Carter Fry, and we'll wrap it up with Mayor Gonzalez. And if you guys forget order, don't worry, I'll be here. I got the list. So, Katie, you're up.
Good morning. As Keith Ellison said, I am one of the attorneys representing the state of Minnesota in the lawsuit filed today against Fleet Farm for repeatedly selling firearms to straw purchasers. Another one of the attorneys representing the state of Minnesota is with me here today, Eric Maloney. As licensed federal firearms dealers, Fleet Farm stores have a duty to prevent unlawful gun purchasers. Federal laws regulate commercial sales of firearms. A key purpose of these laws is to prevent crime and gun trafficking by keeping guns away from people who are not allowed to have them, as Mr. Ellison said. Gun dealers need a license to sell guns. In selling guns, dealers are required to conduct background checks, examine identification of purchasers, and record transactions. Buyers of firearms have to complete a form called the ATF Form 4473. On this form, gun buyers certify that they are the actual buyers. This form also shows that dealers have to do more than background checks. The form says the firearms dealer must determine the lawfulness of the transaction and maintain proper records of the transaction. Form 4473 also says a gun dealer must stop the transaction if there is reasonable cause to believe that the buyer is prohibited from receiving or possessing a firearm. Thus, a firearms dealer is prohibited from completing a sale if the dealer knows or has reason to know that the form is inaccurate because the buyer is not the actual buyer. In addition, firearms dealers like Fleet Farm can refuse to sell a firearm to a buyer for nearly any reason. As Mr. Ellison referenced, there are multiple warning signs of straw purchasing. And the bottom line is this: Fleet Farm could have declined suspicious sales when the same buyer was repeatedly buying lots of the same or the similar guns in a short period of time. Now, Mr. Ellison showed one of the straw purchasers to whom Fleet Farm sold guns, but that's not the only straw purchaser. There's another one that we know of, and we know of these two straw purchasers because they have been criminally prosecuted in federal court. In addition to the guns Fleet Farm sold to Jerome Horton, Fleet Farm sold 13 guns to Sarah Elwood in a 12-month span, and those are illustrated on this timeline. Like with Horton, similar guns, short periods of time, lots of warning signals. Because of Fleet Farm's sales to these straw purchasers, the complaint filed today asserts 5 claims against Fleet Farm, as Mr. Ellison said. The first claim is for negligence. This is based on the fact that Fleet Farm had a duty of care as a dealer, breached that duty, and caused harm. The next 2 claims of negligence per se and negligent entrustment are similar. They too allege that Fleet Farm was negligent. Negligent because statutes were violated, that's negligence per se, and negligent entrustment because Fleet Farm transferred dangerous personal property. The complaint asserts a claim for aiding and abetting because Fleet Farm aided and abetted these straw purchasers, Jerome Horton and Sarah Elwood. And public nuisance, a claim for public nuisance because Fleet Farm's conduct contributed to gun trafficking, a situation that is dangerous to the public health and safety of Minnesotans. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Good job. And now, I'd like to ask survivors of the truck stop shooting, Andrea Weathersby and Sadrina Baker, we need you to make your way up. Where are you now? Are you behind me? Are you on? Oh, they had to leave? Oh. Sadrina just told us that just hearing about all this has triggered an emotional reaction in her. And she's not in an emotional condition to talk about it. She was here, she was ready to talk about it, but she just said, I can't. But we want Sadrina to know we are with her. That's right. And we want her to know that she's being comforted right now. And so we ask y'all to just bear in mind that she went through a horrific incident. Yeah. But maybe the mayor can sort of address some of those issues. So since Sadrina and is Andrea not able to talk either? Yeah, this incident here, just now, just provoked that reaction. So with that, I'd like to ask Michael, Sarah, Adelaide, and Olin to come forward.
As parents, and I know I speak for our daughter as well, we're still a mixture of, we're shock and we're proud and we're a mixture of emotions regarding our 6-year-old at the time finding the gun in our front yard. Where, of course, our situation turned out to be the best possible outcome. Given that he was able to tell us right away that it was a weapon, something instinctually he knew that it was a real gun and not a toy gun, and we're just beyond proud of him. But but we recognize with the other people up here, Crystal, who I met before, and those who had to leave, our situation was incredibly lucky. We have a lot of kids who live in our community, and we are just aware that the outcome could have been a lot worse if it wasn't for his quick thinking. So.
Thank you, Mike. And so now I'd like to invite Cherie Jennings, who is going to talk about LaDavion, a 10-year-old child who was shot.
Hello, everyone. This is a relief. This is really a relief that we making progress with these guns, because as you all know, I'm Cherie Jennings. I'm LaDavion Garrett's grandmother, 10-year-old little boy that got shot in the head in North Minneapolis. My grandson still lives with the bullet in his head from a gunshot wound. So if we can get these guns off the streets, get these people prosecuted for these guns, I thank y'all. I thank y'all for all the work that you're doing. I thank y'all for not letting it get swept under the rug with our children, not only to protect us, but our babies, because we have to make sure that our babies are safe. They want to go outside and play. They want to enjoy life. No kid should have to go outside in their front yard and find a gun. I thank God that you knew what to do. You are amazing. I thank God for that. You know, it could have really been bad for you, you know. So I just thank God that everyone is working together to bring down these organizations. Whoever is running these guns, let's get control of this. We have to get control and protect our babies. So I thank everyone for coming out. I thank y'all for the prayers. Keep LaDavion in y'all prayers. He's still fighting every day to live from a gunshot. So please pray for him, and let's just get everybody. Let's get everybody that got something to do with these guns. Let's get them.
Thank you, Ms. Jennings. So now I'd like to introduce the leaders who are every day working to keep their community safe and know that we've got to get a grip on the situation of this proliferation of guns. And so first I'd like to invite Mayor Carter up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just almost a year ago, St. Paul went through one of the worst nightmares a community can go through. We got the call that we had experienced a mass shooting right down in our West 7th neighborhood, that we had over a dozen people injured, and that we lost the life of a young woman with an incredible smile, incredible family, a strong mother, and an incredible group of friends. Markeisha Wiley should still be with us here today. That was one of the hardest days of my time as mayor, and it was only made harder as I sat in a conversation with Beth, Markeisha's mom. It was only made harder by the news stories that we had to read that said that one of the guns used in that shooting was purchased by someone who had purchased nearly 36 firearms in just a matter of a few months. It was only made harder by the news stories that show gun store employees saying, hey, we knew that guy was suspicious. It was only made harder by seeing a photograph in the news of the straw purchaser coming out of a gun store holding up guns as if to tell somebody in the car, I got him. The fact that guns can be purchased like that, the fact that those guns purchased like that could end up being used in a crime, the fact that guns purchased like that could cost us the life of a 27-year-old in our community is just offensive, and it's unacceptable. As the Attorney General said, we see the shooters being held accountable. We see the purchasers being held accountable. But until we break the profit chains that allow some company or corporate actor to make $1, some regional manager to make a quarterly bonus off of selling 33 firearms in a matter of just a couple of months, will continue to be behind the 8 ball. Us mayors are here because our cities, our community members, our police chiefs, our police officers are tasked with trying to maintain public safety, trying to hold the line in cities where it's just far too easy for people to get their hands on a gun. And we know that we need help, Attorney General. That's why I made that call. Because we need help making it harder for people to get their hands on a gun. I hear stories all the time about the 16-year-old, the 17-year-old, the 15-year-old, the 10-year-old who had a gun, who found a gun, who somehow had their hands on a gun. And I never hear stories about how we're holding accountable the supply lines that end up with guns over and over and over and over and over and over and over again in the hands of the wrong people in our community. Thank you, Attorney General, for taking this bold action. I know that we're all encouraged and hopeful about this action and its ability not only to hold Fleet Farm accountable, but to usher in a new day in which we take seriously our role as a community to ensure that the right to bear arms is one that we are protecting, that we are promoting in a way that also allows our communities, our children, our 10-year-olds, our 2-year-olds to be safe.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now, Mayor Fry, and if you don't mind me pointing this out, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor is on holiday today. Today's Yom Kippur, but this is an issue that he felt so strongly about. He's with us today, and I want to thank you for that. Yes, sir.
The Attorney General is right. This is the highest of the high holy days in the Jewish tradition. And normally on this day, I and other Jews throughout the Twin Cities go to temple and don't work. But this is important. People's lives are at stake. The hardest calls that we get as mayors are the calls that take place at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, sometimes 2 in the afternoon. But they all involve one commonality, which is gun violence. Somebody's brother, somebody's son, sister, or father got shot, and their lives are forever changed. And the underlying issue is that there are areas in the Twin Cities, in Minneapolis, where it is easier to buy a gun than a fresh apple. Now, why is that? Because there aren't gun shops in Minneapolis. You don't have a gun shop right around there on the corner. The underlying reason is that we have guns coming into our city by the trunkload. Illegal guns and legal guns coming into the city because we have not looked upstream enough in that supply chain. Why should you be able to purchase 36 guns in a short period of time? Why do you need 36 guns? The answer is you don't. Why should you be able to reel off 30-plus rounds before you reload in a city? The answer is you don't need to do that. You may all have heard about the widely publicized opioid lawsuit, one in which people across that supply chain have been held accountable. People ranging from the final drug dealer to those that knowingly sold opioids, recognizing that people were going to get addicted and people could die. Guns also kill people. We need to make sure that every step of the way along this supply chain, people are held accountable. The person that pulls that final trigger. And also the entities that are knowingly selling guns, recognizing that someone who's purchasing 36 or 24 some odd guns in just a couple of months may not be purchasing those same guns and putting them in one lockbox in their home. It's not reasonable. And so I appreciate those with courage that have had the guts to step up, and Attorney General Keith Ellison. I appreciate our police officers that are out there every single day making sure that the perpetrators of these violent crimes are held accountable. I appreciate the Attorney General's office in that they are stepping up to make sure that these supply chains that have been a source of so much pain and trauma in our communities are broken. And so I so appreciate your work on this. Thank you so much. We look forward to the partnership.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thanks for being here. Mayor Maria Reagan Gonzalez, mayor of Richfield, is just trying to be the mayor of a town with a football game going on. And she had to get that tragic call, and she's here with us today. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Every single community in Minnesota is impacted by this, including our community of Richfield. It is in our neighborhoods that this gun violence is happening. It is near and around our schools that this violence is happening. These guns are being purchased in our communities, and violent acts are happening in our communities. This is happening statewide. And we need to make sure that every single part of our community, member of our community, is doing what we can. Our local enforcement is working hard. We are prosecuting these perpetrators, but we need to make sure we're doing everything to keep our families, our students, our children safe in our communities. And I want to thank you, Attorney General Ellison, for your work. Everybody has to work together, including our retailers, and we need to make sure that we're keeping our families and our children safe. And no community is immune from this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So that will conclude our press conference. What we will be, we've already filed a lawsuit. It's filed. And we will be pursuing it with the goal to stop gun trafficking, improper gun sales, and stop tragic incidents like the one that Olin and his family had to deal with, and the shooting incidents that Ms. Jennings and her families had to deal with, and Ms. Wiley, and many countless others. And I'm sorry I don't have a list of everybody who's lost someone, but it's endless, and we've just got to stop it. And this is what we can do, is what we're going to do. So with that, yeah.
Why are you going after these folks civilly? Based on what you said, it sounds like these people have committed crimes. Why not charge them criminally?
Because under Minnesota Statute 8.01, and the criminal prosecution is done at the county level. The Attorney General does not have original jurisdiction to prosecute these cases, but we do have civil jurisdiction, and we're using it.
What about jurisdiction and where the company's based?
So the county could charge them criminally if they wanted to?
You know, Randy, I'm not here to talk about that. I'm telling you that what we're doing today. We're using our civil authority, charging out these matters. But what you're asking me would require a lot of legal analysis that I haven't done. I've looked at the civil matter, so I'm authoritative on that. But that's it.
And again, Fleet Farm jurisdiction is based, I believe, in Wisconsin. So are you pursuing the individual retailers here? How are you going about that?
Well, we're going after the source of the guns that resulted in these illegal trafficking situations. So I don't know, Katie, do you want to? Yeah. Eric, you want to come up? Yeah.
Morning, everyone. I'm Eric Maloney, Assistant AG, also working on this litigation. So our lawsuit names 3 Fleet Farm entities. They have 17 stores here in Minnesota. Our complaint does focus on 4 locations that sold firearms to it. I think the Durham Horton poster board is now down. It's the other poster board. But there were 4 Fleet Farm stores, mostly in the Twin Cities metro area, that sold to Durham Horton.
And you do have jurisdiction, even though it's based in Wisconsin, corporation.
Correct. They have physical locations here. They do business here. We can definitely sue them here.
Okay. One more Fleet Farm question. This is political. You probably remember when you were in Congress, a member of the Mills family, Stuart Mills, ran for Congress.
Right.
Republican activist. Is there any way this is political for you?
Not at all. Not at all. In fact, let me just say, and I appreciate you asking that, somebody could be shot down by one of these illegal guns today. It would be political to not do anything.
That's right.
We've got to act.
That's right.
Thank you for the question.
Sir, but the Mills family doesn't own Mills Fleet Farm anymore. They sold it 3 or 4 years ago, correct?
Look, yeah, we're dealing with the corporate entity. This is, but she asks, okay.
What were the other two entities that are being named?
So we sued Fleet Farm LLC, we sued Fleet Farm Group LLC, and then Fleet Farm Wholesale Supply Company LLC. So I won't go into the arcana of why we sued those three. The complaint lays it out, but that's the three entities.
No officers named, no.
Correct. Just those three limited liability companies.
So I have a question for you, if you can get
Sure.
specific to the investigation. Is it, I don't know what you can reveal, did you find out that these stores were not talking to each other? I mean, it seems like an unreasonable amount of guns that even within the same corporate entity, they couldn't keep track of their sales. Is that your belief at this point?
It's a good question. So our complaint is mostly based on, honestly, it's publicly available information because Jerome Horton, Sarah Elwood, they've been prosecuted criminally. You know, we have in the complaint, we kind of walk through the state court cases that have then been tied to those criminal prosecutions. So, you know, that's the information that we have right now. So, you know, we don't have any visibility yet into what kind of happened internally at Fleet Farm, but I think we can put two and two together based on, you know, how these numbers stack up.
You talked about how some of these straw purchasers were able to kind of like work the system at Fleet Farm to avoid being detected. Do you know if Fleet Farm has since gone and maybe modified some of their policies since these straw purchasers have been arrested and charged, or is there a reason to believe that these purchases could still be happening under the current system and, you know, precautions that Fleet Farm has in place?
So I have two thoughts on that. One is that, you know, I think we'll find out in our case through discovery what Fleet Farm has or hasn't done as far as if they've taken steps to, you know, correct what's happened here. As far as, I'm sorry, what was the second half of your question?
Do you know if they've made any changes since these arrests have been made?
I don't know that. No.
And then my second follow-up was going to be, you mentioned these two specifics, but I know when one of the people was arrested and charged, they talked about, I think, more than 100 weapons. Do you know exactly how many guns or firearms were tied to these straw purchases over the 4 Fleet Farm locations?
So for the Fleet Farm, the sales that were made by Fleet Farm, that's 37 total guns. There's 24 to Jerome Horton and then 13 to Sarah Elwood.
So do you know if there's potentially other retailers that are going to be facing some of this sort of charges also? Because I know there's a significant amount of firearms that these straw purchasers had when they were charged and arrested.
We're not prepared to make any announcements today. But let me just tell you this. We're not prepared to make announcements today. We have an ongoing investigation. And so I would say, if you're doing it, stop now. But at this point, we don't have anything to share at this moment.
Thank you.
Can you speak to the scope a little more broadly? These 37 guns, what do they represent among all of the straw purchase guns? Are you seeing other groups, retailers that have had similar high numbers? Are they coming in from other sources?
Let me answer your question this way. We're trying to stop sales to straw purchase. We're trying to stop this trafficking. I'm not prepared to announce today other retail outlets we might be looking at. But we are continuing to look, and we mean to stop gun trafficking in Minnesota. I know you asked a specific question, but that's what we can tell you now.
We are continuing to look at other retail outlets, is that what you meant?
I would put it like this. If you are a retail outlet who's doing this, you should stop. That's pretty much all I'll say.
Attorney General, could you just talk about how unique of a moment this is? Has this been done before?
You know, let me tell you, as we were prepping for today, that question has come up, and quite honestly, I have to admit, I don't know. Let me tell you what I know. I know that this beautiful kid right here found a loaded weapon that came from there. And that's not okay. I know that this young lady's grandson, you know, I know that's what I know. So we'll look back and figure out who's done it before and all that kind of stuff. But what we know is that the legal causes of action that we have pled in our complaint are solid, and we're going to prove them in court.
Is there legislation you'd like to see that would work in tandem with this effort?
Maybe, haven't thought about it yet, but it's a good idea to look into that. We're using the tools that we have, but I can tell you this. I'm hoping that reasonable, responsible gun retailers side with us. Because, you know, they should not tolerate somebody in their ranks who is being negligent. And I'm sure most are not. But if anybody is, we're hoping that the industry helps police itself.
Could you just one last time speak to the precautions that were in place at the retailer and how the straw purchasers were able to get by those precautions to purchase so many firearms in such a low amount of time?
So I don't claim to have exhaustive knowledge of what measures Fleet Farm has in place. I think we'll find that out during discovery, how good those measures were or maybe how deficient they were. I think that's a big focus of what we're going to try to find out from the company. I will say that our complaint mentions when Jerome Horton bought his last gun, I think it's that October 17 gun, our complaint details that the ATF, which is the federal bureau that you know licenses firearm dealers, reviewed footage from Fleet Farm, and so Fleet Farm has a surveillance system, and that system showed Horton using his phone to videotape guns because he was transmitting those images to whoever he was buying for. So that was happening in Fleet Farm store on their cameras. That still went through. That's the gun right there. So I think, you know, we'll find out more, but I think what we know so far is concerning.
So you're just still very early on in this?
We are.
And do you have context on how many guns Fleet Farm sells versus other retailers in Minnesota?
I don't know that. I mean, there are statistics that are gathered about commonly background checks are the proxy for how many guns are sold, but I don't have, as of right now, our office does not have, you know, sales data for Fleet Farm.
And we don't have a sense of whether they're the biggest provider or seller of guns in the state, where they are.
We really focused on the sales to straw purchasers, right? That how many suspicious sales were made that ended in harm.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You'll get a press release in your inboxes, and there will be a link in it to the complaint itself, and also to these forms, electronic records.
And John, you have all the names or spellings of the names?
Could you get us to speak?
Look at that kid. Good looking boy.